Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Cyber CSI. Learn how to forensically examine phishing emails to better protect your organization today. This event is brought to you in partnership with KnowBe4 and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator on today's special webinar. Now, we want this event to be an educational event, so we encourage you to use the questions box, and our expert presenter is standing by to answer all of your questions. We'll also be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. We have a number of handouts available for download in your audience console. I encourage you to check those out, and we'll also be announcing the winner of today's prize. That is an Amazon $300 gift card that we'll be awarding after the Q&A session. If you're watching this event on demand, I'm sorry the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the handouts tab of your audience console where it says ATM prize terms and conditions. And without further delay, I'm excited to introduce our expert presenter. That is Mr. Roger Grimes, data-driven defense evangelist at KnowBe4. Take it away, Roger.
Thanks, everyone, for attending today's webinar entitled Cyber CSI. Learn how to forensically examine phishing emails to better protect your organization today. I'm Roger Grimes. If you haven't met me before, I'm data-driven defense evangelist for KnowBe4. I've got 32, almost 33 years of experience in computer security. I'm working on my 12th book, and I've written over 1,000 magazine articles on computer security. Here's some of the list of some of my books. The latest one is Cryptography Apocalypse, talking about the day when quantum computers breaks today's cryptos and how companies can prepare for attack today. I work for KnowBe4. We're the world's largest and best security awareness training vendor. I love working for KnowBe4. I'm not making that up. Just a fantastic place to be. And of course, we're trying to help people fight phishing. And so I've seen, since I've been there for a couple of years, thousands of phishing emails and Vishing and Smishing emails, which we'll talk about, and how we forensically troubleshoot them. And I figured I could share some of that, some of those ideas and methods with y'all today. Today's presentation is talking about how, why to investigate phishing emails and Vishing and Smishing stuff, how to investigate, and then details on how to do that investigation. So the first question is, why investigate? Well, first of all, it's to confirm the fraud. Maybe you've received an email or a phone call or SMS message or something like that, and you're not sure whether it's bad or not. So we'll talk about the ways that you can help confirm or deny whether it's malicious or not. Confirm the details of something where someone says they send you something from somewhere, and you can say, hey, are they released from where they say they're from, or are they from somewhere else? And probably also helpful, you can recognize patterns. You'll see things, go, oh yeah, I've seen this before. This is I've heard about this before. It's an existing phishing method, or maybe this is brand new. You look at something and go, this is brand new, never seen it before, and now I need to share this with other people. So that way you can help craft better future prevention, detection, and response controls. And just, in general, to get specific details about ways that people are attempting to phish you and your end users to help gain general education and awareness and share that with others. And also, how to spot new types of phishing and hacks. But I tell you what, you can also confirm who it is or isn't from. I oftentimes just do it because I just want to see. I'm just like, where is this from? What does it contain? If you're a curious person, you just want to know what it's about. But I tell you what, you should not investigate for. If you think you're going to find, punish, or prosecute the hackers or getting money back that you've lost, most of the time these hacking attacks, phishing attacks come from overseas, and the jurisdictional boundaries of any law enforcement you could get involved don't apply to those overseas countries, and vice versa. If we have hackers coming from here and attacking them, they're not going to serve our search warrants on their people, and vice versa. And we're not going to serve, it's not like in America that we're going to take search warrants from China or Russia and make them apply and ship criminals, cyber criminals over there. It just doesn't, sadly, happen that way today. It's very difficult to find and punish and prosecute hackers. I've been doing this 33 years. I've only been involved with 2 security incident responses where I actually rescued the people. I'm sorry, not rescued, actually arrested the people. And that's because they actually happened to be in the same country, and they were very stupid and didn't, cover up their tracks that well. But it is very, very difficult to do. So don't think you're going to arrest somebody. You can try. You can always try. You can always get lucky, but it just rarely ever happens that way. But how to investigate? There's 4 different main methods: visual inspection, looking at the email or the fish or the vish. Doing research on it, that is mostly, those ways are mostly the way that we do it. But you can do additional forensics analysis on the email or the malware or the file attachment or link that's involved. And you can use different tools that help you do all of these things. And I'll be talking about, I'll give you example forensics analysis tools that you can use, some that I love using, and then others that others use in some interesting ways. And you'll probably learn something in here, if nothing else. Just be aware that anytime you're investigating phishing attacks, it's a rabbit hole of time consumption. I've spent a day or two on a single email. I've certainly easily spent an hour or 2 on a single email. So just know that you need to do it because, either you need to do it because you need to do it, or you do it because it's a labor of love like I do it. Like in my, what I do at Noble for, I'm not usually one tracking down phishes and emails forensically. I just like to kind of look at them, and I'm curious to see what's there and how they look and where they're coming from, but it's not really an official part of my job, but I love learning more, and I bet many people here do too. One note of caution before we get started here: anything beyond research about a phish of some sort requires an isolated forensics clean system, either a physical machine that's separated from your network and has different login names and passwords than what you use in real life, or at the very least some isolated virtual machine environment. But you don't want to be clicking on links and opening file attachments on your regular production work system, right? Let's talk about how you investigate it. We'll start with how to investigate email phishes. The first thing is we can look at 2 parts of the email phish, and that's the regular message body that all of us see all the time, or the header, which is really what I'm going to get into. But we'll start with the message body. You certainly want to look at the message to see if it contains clues to whether it's malicious or not, any URLs, any file attachments, any embedded images. Those are certainly things that we're going to look at to see, hey, is it a phish? If you want to, this is a really cool PDF. You can use it from this presentation, or you can email me at rogerg@noble4.com, and I'll send you a PDF of this. But this is like the common 20 things we look at as social engineering red flags in an email. Like, did it come at a weird time at night? Did it come from someone I don't know? Does it have bad grammar and spelling errors? Is the sender asking me to click a link or open something? So this is kind of a really cool PDF that I encourage you to download. And again, I'll email you or I'll send it to you in email if you email me at rogerg@noble4.com. But this has a really nice collection of hints of how to kind of spot badness just by looking at the email. But also, certainly anytime we get an email with a file attachment, you have to be careful because file attachments can be malicious. One of the things we've seen lately, though, are these fake file attachments. So this email, here's an example of an email that looks like it has a file attachment, but if you hover over it, it's not a file attachment. If you hover over a file attachment, it doesn't put up a URL link. So in this case, it's actually a link. It's a graphic embedded link that points back to some other object on the server. I've never seen this done on a legitimate email. So if you see a fake file attachment, which is really just an image that points to something over the internet, it is probably malicious. Other things that I look for is these disjointed receive reply email addresses, where they claim they're from Microsoft or somebody, but it has some other address, or misbranded URL. I talk about disconnected, bogus URLs, and other things like MIME type mismatches or unrequested requests for action, like, hey, I need you to change bank wiring instructions. Or stressor claims are certainly a big deal, right? We're like, you need to do this now. If you don't do this now, we're going to lose the deal, or you're going to lose we're going to close your account, whatever it happens to be. One of the big things I look for is these disconnected email addresses. Like in the first example here, it's supposedly a Bank of America. Hey, you need to unlock your account. Important message from Bank of America, except for it isn't from bankofamerica.com. It's from customerloyalties.accounts.com, or really it's from Shakeaway. If you look at the link there, if you reply to this email, it's going to some email account on shakeaway.com. That's where the domain is. That isn't Microsoft. Microsoft wouldn't be using Shakeaway. Or in the second example, it says, hey, this is it claims to be from Microsoft, but it really is from the domain soft.com, and really from snspreview7.com.au, meaning Australia. This is not from Microsoft. Or Maersk. In the bottom example there, Maersk is the world's largest shipping company, but it appears as if it's coming from Microsoft Office 365. When you see that on Microsoft.com, it's an Office 365 account. Maersk is a big company. It would be coming from, Maersk.com. So that's a branding mismatch, right? If I get an email from Microsoft, it comes from Microsoft.com. If I get an email from, whoever, from Pepsi, it's from Pepsi.com. It's not coming from an Office 365 account. It's not coming from onlinealex.com.pl. I'm not even sure what country code PL is. Or in the last example there on the bottom right-hand screen, it says it's from Microsoft Online, but if you look there, they've misspelled online. Microsoft, it says Microsoft Inline, not online. And again, it's coming from Office 365. So when you see these disconnected email addresses where the URLs, and the domains are different than what it's claiming to be from, highly suspicious. I tell people to look out for these rogue URLs. Like this is an Office 365. Supposedly it's from either, I can't remember what, it's from Microsoft, right? We're happy to continue serving you at Microsoft 1 MSN Way. By the way, it's 1 Redmond Way. That's the real address. I guess they didn't know the real address. But I can see here it's not really from Microsoft.com. It's from developers, develops snw.com. They put in that /login Microsoft.com to fool people, but it really isn't there. I have to stop at the first com. Or this one, this is an example that Kevin Mitnick, our chief hacking officer, used in a demo where he bypasses LinkedIn's two-factor authentication. He sent a rogue email that was really from LLLinkedIn.com, not LinkedIn.com. So you spot these rogue URLs, sound alike, look alike, domains. You usually want to be kind of suspicious there. Also, if you get instructions, people like the person sending emails like, hey, we want you to open this file attachment of this link, but they're giving you helpful instructions about ignore all those warnings and enable the macros. I've never been sent a legitimate email from a legitimate vendor where they had to tell me to enable the macros, right? Anytime I see that sort of thing, it's just bogus or malicious. If you want to look at other signs of maliciousness in regular emails and phishing, stuff like that, I can't think of a better place to go than our Know Before blog at blog.knowbefore.com. We update it. There's usually 3 or 4 or 5 stories a day. We got lots of good resources at knowbefore.com/resources. We have Phishes of the week every week, and we have the Phishes of the quarter, and we have the quarterly infographics. So if you want to keep up to date on what phishing's looking like in a given period, you can do no better than to go to our blog. But now we're going to go into the more exciting stuff for me, the geek stuff, and forensically examine or look at the email headers. Every email has header information in it that will show you where it's coming from and going to. Lots of required fields, a lot of optional information, and a lot of garbage that must mean something to somebody else, maybe, but it doesn't mean anything to me. Every email has a header. It gets changed. It can be changed or updated on every what's called mail transfer agent. Every little set of steps from source to destination that it goes through updates the header, although each mail transfer agent can actually modify the header. So you really can't believe the header except for the last mail transfer agent, which is probably your email server. And that's if it didn't maliciously change it. So just know these email headers can be faked. And sometimes they are faked, or people change them or manipulate them. I've even seen hackers put in header information saying, oh, it's been scanned by a virus and all this stuff. You can't 100% believe what's in a header, but most of the time, 99.9% of the time, in my experience, the header information has been accurate, and you can use it to kind of look. But the way that you read them is you start in reverse order, and the header will have the latest information at the top and the oldest information at the bottom, so you have to read them in reverse time order. To look at an email header, how to see the header, it depends on the email client you're using. If you're in Outlook, you open an email, choose File Properties, Internet Headers. So there's an email. I choose File Option, File Properties, not File Options, File Properties, and choose Properties. And then in that is these Internet Headers. You can read them in there, but it's really hard to read them. So I usually do a Control-A to select all, and then Control-C to copy it, and I paste it into Notepad or WordPad or something like that. A lot easier. In Gmail, you got to open up an email. You click on these 3 dots on the right there, and then when you do that, you can say Show Original, and it will put these original message up at the top there, and you can say copy to the clipboard. That will take that email header and allow you to copy it and put it in the notepad. This is what an email header looks like. Lots of information in there, again, in reverse time order. The first thing I usually try to do is I want to know who originally sent the email, who is the original sender. If you're lucky, you can find a field. I always do a search, a control F for find. If you're lucky, you can find the original, what's called the X originating IP. Only about 1 out of 4 emails, in my experience, happen to have that. But if you have that, it will give you the IP address or the domain name of the originating email sender server. That's really, really great if you can find that X originating IP. There are some examples there, but a lot of times you won't find those X originating IPs, so you have to look for all these receives. So there's this field called receive, and it will have the public IP address or domain name of the original sender and any intermediate MTAs. It's a required field for every MTA, and as long as some other some other type of MTA didn't wipe it out, it'd be there. They can be in different styles, but what you want to do is find the first one in the message. So if you look at this example here, I'm looking for received at the very top. That's the last one. That's usually my email server. Then you look and you'll see there's another received kind of in the middle there, and then there's this next received. So you search through the email header, find the first received, and in this case is received by 172.16.125.104. That will be the original sender. And again, it's the public IP address or domain name of the original sender and any intermediate MTAs. So here's another example where, again, if you look in this message here, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 receives. This is a very common looking email header. I go all the way to the bottom, and you can see it was received from what? Shakeaway by server feqweb.com. If I want to go extra, see that the EXIM, that means that means it came from an on-premises Exchange email server. But what I'm more interested in is that it was sent by server.feqhweb.com. So this particular email claimed that it came from Microsoft. It did not. It came from feqhweb.com. That's where it came from. And if I want to look that up there, I could do an NS lookup if I wanted to. If you go into any Linux or Apple or Linux, Apple, or Windows desktop, and you get to a command prompt, you can use NS lookup and do NS lookup of any name. So I did the NS lookup of feqhw.com. Whenever you do NS lookup, the first server and address you get there, that's your DNS server that you're using. What you want to look for is that second part there, and it says, oh, FEQHW web, that's the IP address of 162.144.65.24. That's important for a couple of reasons, including that I can actually look up the IP addresses that Microsoft email servers are located at and figure out whether or not that particular IP address is in that range. But more importantly, I can look up the country origin of where that IP address is and who bought the domain and that sort of stuff. So if you want to find out where the IP address originates from, so again, here I've got an email. It's claiming to be from the InfoWorld administrator. I used to work for InfoWorld for 15, 20 years. I was the weekly security columnist until the end of 2019. So it was sent to my InfoWorld address, Roger_Grimes at InfoWorld. It's claiming to be from the InfoWorld.com administrator. Immediately, I can see a lot of disconnects there. It really says, oh, if I replied, it would really go to team.admin.net, and I can see because of the on Microsoft.com that really it's coming from Office 365. So I open, find the email header, look for the receive. You can see a bunch of receives in there, receive, receive, receive. I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, go to the fourth one, and I can see that it really originated from a server called te.team-admin.net at IP address 185.62.190.159. I can look that up. There's a lot of lookup IP addresses, and here's one that's at iplocation.net. I put in the IP address, and it tells me, hey, this is from the Russian Federation. This is not from InfoWorld in Boston, Massachusetts, or in San Francisco, California, where their emails would normally come from. This one's coming from Russia, probably not going to be InfoWorld. And if you think it comes from Microsoft or something, or Gmail or something, you can usually look them up. You can literally just Google or Bing for Microsoft public IP addresses. Microsoft does a list of all the public IP addresses that they use. It's kind of a partial list here. But if I was to look that up here and it was claiming to be from Microsoft, it wasn't. They did not have 162 dot something in there. So again, you can look up for the big companies. They have their public IP addresses out there, list of them. You can check to see if it's in there. Also, be suspicious anytime you get an email that claims that it's from smtp.com, sendgrid.net, constantcontact.com, Gmail, or Office 365. Those are all public mail servers, and the bad guys like to use them because they can create names that look like Microsoft Online, helpsupport.com at 0365 or Hotmail, or I can, Mersk at gmail.com or something like that. So they can put in the name that looks a little bit suspicious like something else. So anytime you see one of these public email server names, and again, you may be familiar with Gmail and Office 365, but you're probably not familiar with sendgrid.net or Constant Contact or smtp.com. When I see that and it claims to be from a big brand name company, I don't trust it. You can also look up to see who owns particular IP addresses. There's all kinds of lookups all over the internet. Here's an ARIN, what's called an ARIN lookup, where I just put in the IP address and it's telling me this particular IP address is owned by Wide Open West. And it's telling me that it was registered on this day. It was registered in January 2009. So this is a fairly old IP address. And it will tell me, again, that it was opened by Wide Open West. But what I like here, too, is it gives you an abuse address. So you can actually email abuse@wideopenwest.com and see whether or not this really was, if this email that was claiming to be from them really came from a host on their side. Here's another lookup. I did a lookup for feqhweb.com that I got sent there, and it said, hey, this is coming from dynadot.com, or this is where it was registered. One thing I know about is that it's dynamic DNS registration. A lot of the bad malware comes from these dynamic DNS addresses. They get updated every 15 minutes or 2 days or whatever. But again, I've got another abuse address there. I can do an abuse at dynadot.com and ask some more information there. I can see when it was last registered. So it was originally registered in 2009. It was last updated in 2019. September 2019. So that gives me a little bit of information that can help out. Also, though, be aware that that it's really easy for the address location to actually not be where it's from. Like a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to allow any email to come from Russia or China, so I'm going to block any IP addresses from Russia or China. All Russia or China does get on the internet, connect to a U.S. cloud-based service like, Amazon AWS or Microsoft or something, and they put their email server there, and then everything will seem to originate from those servers and not from Russia or China. So just be careful. You don't always have accurate location attribution. They can always redirect it before they send it to you. I also like to see how old the domain registration is. Younger is more risky. So I got sent this. I've actually had it a lot. When I use my cell phone, I'll be on news sites or something. All of a sudden I get these pop-ups that go, hey, you've won a chance to win a free iPhone. And you fill out 3 questions or 5 questions like, you won a free iPhone. Well, I've got a lot of those messages lately, and it comes from the domain name was themobilebonus.com. So I looked that up. And what I look is that it was created in 2019, which at the time was only a couple of months old. Well, that's kind of bad, right? I mean, if this is going to be a legitimate company, it's probably going to be years old, not going to just be a year old or 4 months old. In a lot of these times, they're literally only hours old or days old. Anytime you see a DNS address that is relatively new, you want to watch out. It's probably a little bit suspicious. And actually, I see in this case that their DNS servers that they're registered with is Cloudflare. That's kind of sad because this is a kind of pestware company, if not a phishware. It's definitely pestware. And using Cloudflare.com concerns me because they can handle, it's really hard to take down one of these pestware providers when they're with Cloudflare, because Cloudflare has a lot of anti-denial of service attack stuff on it. And you can see it's like usually if you're a good guy, you can sometimes get a court order or something saying you need to transfer this domain to this other place to shut it down. That's what law enforcement does. And they're like, hey, client transfer prohibited. So they're literally using some legitimate services to kind of protect themselves in this case. You can look and see if the domain has been blacklisted. So here's the one I put in there. There's websites all over the internet that tell you whether or not they're blacklisted. I'm going MX Toolbox. It's a very common one. They got a lot of cool tools. And I looked up Fujimar.com, and I can see that, hey, it was listed on one of the, just out of all, I think what do they have here? They've got 96 known blacklists, and only one of them had it blacklisted. And I've got to tell you, most of the rogue URLs that I put in here, they're not on any known blacklist, and that's because they're relatively new, the URLs that they're using. So it's not uncommon for a truly malicious URL not to be blacklisted. But if you do find one that actually is blacklisted, well, that, maybe it was put on there accidentally, or, it really should be used as just one more tool in your toolbox. So getting a clean bill of health doesn't mean that it's not malicious, but it's just another little tiny point of information. Or is the domain healthy? There's some things where you can look up domain health. Like I got an email from Google Chrome Updates claiming that the attachment was to update my browser. I kind of laughed because I'm like, Google Chrome has its own client updater. It doesn't need to come through email. Google has never sent me an email to update Google Chrome. But I looked up Google. I thought it was a great name, Google Chrome Updates. So I looked up the domain health of it, and you can see here that it's failing what's called the DMARC, SPF, and MX checks. We're going to take a look about that. But and even more importantly, the bottom of the screen, it says may be an open relay. Open relays are really ripe for spammers and phishers. Well, Google doesn't make these sort of mistakes. We're going to talk more about DMARC, SPF, and things like that. But it's even saying Google Chrome here doesn't even have an MX record, doesn't have a mail exchange record. Again, they just sent an email. And Google's not going to do that, right? Google's going to have a healthy domain. Any subdomain they use is going to be healthy. So again, if I see errors here, I'm a little bit suspicious here. Also, I'm a bit of a nerd. I love looking up business names to see where they are if I can track them down. I'm a big believer in Google Maps to see, hey, is the location they're claiming to be from look right for the claimed business? Like when I looked up that the mobile phone one, this is what I found. The address tied to the mobile phone domain address was tied to this Texas, little town in Texas with 3 pickup trucks in front of it. And I guess I'm being a little bit sexist, or not sexist. I don't know what I'm being. Technologist, elitist. I'm being elitist here. And by the way, I drive a pickup truck for a living, but it just doesn't seem to me, this doesn't look like the internet firm I'd expect to be sending out free mobile phones. It's some little tiny town in Texas with 3 pickup trucks. There's no Prius in front of it at all. This definitely looks bogus to me. But I even looked them up in the Better Business Bureau. Here's the ad, the mobile phone. The free mobile phone company said, oh, we're Total Access Network, and you're in the iPhone 11 sweepstakes and all this stuff. And it was kind of, their phone was disconnected when I called, their email bounced back, and I looked them up in the Better Business Bureau, and they had actually, it says this business is no longer in business. Well, I don't know why I'm getting information. I'm not sure why I'm getting emails to call them. But it was kind of wild. They say you want a free iPhone, but then if you follow through and did everything, you'd be charged like $200. I actually did a LinkedIn article on it one day. I thought it was quite unique. Yeah, your credit card, it's a free iPhone, but somehow your credit card they're going to bill you for $19.73 today and $14.44 per week in advance for 6 weeks. Wow, that's a lot for a free iPhone that I supposedly won, and you don't get the iPhone. Anyways, the spammers and attackers like using real business names that are discontinued because it makes it a little bit harder to figure out that it's fake. I like to find out, is the email really from the domain that it claims to come from? There's 3 protocols there that are probably pretty important that can help you find out some of that stuff, and that's SPF and DKIM, and actually DMARC's a part of it. So SPF, SPF Sender Policy Framework, and DKIM, Domain Keys Identified Mail. Those are kind of national or global, I'm sorry, not national, international standards that help prevent people from spoofing your domain. So if you have them enabled on your domain, if somebody sends an email claiming to be from your domain, the receiver can figure out, is it true or not? It's turned on for most domains today. And the way that works, SPF actually verifies what's called the 5321 mail from address. You may not see the address. The addresses you see in an email is the friendly form and the 5322. But if you were to hit reply to an email, the address that automatically populates when you reply, the reply to address, that's the 5321. SPF says if an email claims to be from a domain from the 5321, is it really from there? And you can actually look at an email header and you look for what's called the SPF equals. That's what the text, and you'll see here it says SPF equals pass. So this email is claiming to be from, harlanclark.com, and it really is from harlanclark.com. Here's an example of SPF failing. I look in the header and see SPF fail, SPF fail. It's claiming to be from augustdeboozy.com. It's not. It failed. It did not come from that domain. Domain key is identified email, DKIM. That actually, a sender puts a public-private key pair on their email server, and the private key signs all outgoing email, and then any receivers can actually download the public key from that person's DNS server and verify did it really come from that server. And again, there's pass and fails in the headers. So here's an example of a DKIM signature in email. So this is the signature where it got signed it. So the email server signed that email with its private key, and it creates this signature, which is that gobbledygook at the bottom there. That's just base 64 encoded digital signature. But then when you get the email, you can look in the email header and see is it DKIM pass or DKIM fail. So there it is, DKIM pass. Signature was verified. So this email really came from harlanclark.com. But then I use an example of a failure here. Here's one that was claiming that it came from astrowaremo.info. It did not come from there. It failed DKIM. Also, you look for all these X headers. Every email header I've ever looked in has a lot of these X headers in them. And X just means it begins with X. And they're extra or experimental. They can be added by the MTA. There's a lot of them that are junk, but there's a lot of them that are useful. Microsoft and Google and stuff put stuff in there. They're kind of like a little, you can't rely upon them, but at the same time, there's a lot of useful, good information that can be in them. Like just looking at the example here, I can see this particular email went through Microsoft anti-spam. There's some classifiers. You can actually look up those classifiers and find out what they mean and whether Microsoft thought this was a phish or not. And it's claiming it went through Microsoft Exchange and that sort of stuff. The other one went through Google. I can see ex-Google, SMTP source. And again, sometimes you get useful information, sometimes you don't, but it's kind of interesting to pour through any of the X headers. Like here's an X header from Microsoft for the X Forefront anti-spam report. And you can actually look up, and I've got a link to it, but you can actually go look up and see what those headers, the SCL, the SRV, the IPV, the NLI, the SFV, that sort of stuff. It will tell you whether or not what those mean in there and what the ranking was, whether it was highly likely to be spam or phishing or highly likely not to be. So if you look in there for those X headers, sometimes you can get, see some useful information as long as it hasn't been spoofed. Opening URLs and file attachments, you got to be careful about that. Never click on a URL that you're suspicious of or open a file attachment on your regular device or computer, because it can lead to immediate exploitation. It can be a 0-day, or if you weren't patched, it can be a drive-by download. It can even send your password hash. Yes, clicking on a link can send your password hash to an attacker. They can send your IP address, and it can leak information about your operating system and patch status and that sort of stuff. If you need to open a URL or click on a URL, or to open a file, you can use free online services that will do it for you and tell you whether or not they think it's malicious. You can turn it over to a true forensics expert, or you can do like I do, which is open it in a safe virtual machine or isolated computer built for that purpose. Although some malware can detect virtual machines and they may not launch, but most of them, they don't care. If you need to open a URL, again, you can open it in a safe virtual machine. You don't want to have it connected to your network. You don't want to use any of your same logon names. And if you're going to do a virtual machine, you can use VMware, Hyper-V, VirtualBox, Windows 10 Sandbox I recently learned about from a viewer of this particular webinar. Even Amazon Workplaces or maybe Cubes, which is a really cool operating system. But if you don't know about Windows 10 Sandbox, if you have Windows 10, you can actually download the Windows 10 Sandbox. You got to go to Windows Features, turn Windows Features on or off. You enable the Windows Sandbox option there. You got to reboot your computer if it's not already been installed, and then it will put a little icon there. And what's so cool is that when you click on it, it opens up a clean version of your version of Windows. It doesn't have your applications, it doesn't have your files, but it just opens very quickly, like in 15 seconds. On a really slow computer, maybe a minute, but usually about 15 seconds, it opens a Windows desktop, and you can then launch. Usually what I'll do is I'll email any spam email or links or file attachments to one of my, I got garbage Hotmail accounts, you know, that I've set up for just that sort of thing. So I'll forward those things to my Hotmail account, and then I open up Internet Explorer and open them up there to see what they do. And I even have a link that points to all my cool forensics tools that I like to use. The great thing about the Windows 10 Sandbox is that it's really hard for anything to escape out of it. And number two, when you close it, it's all, you know, it's all cleaned out again. So you don't have to worry about an infection or something malicious hanging around and modifying your virtual machine so that you can't use it in the future. The bad thing is that it's really hard to save anything, because when you close it out, it starts up brand new again. Although I've got mine modified, so I at least have a link to my local desktop so I can pull up my forensics tools that I like using. You can also submit any malware or URL links to VirusTotal. That's a Google site that has 73 different antivirus engines. It kind of varies. It had 65 years ago, and then sometimes it's seen like 75 or 78, but there's a lot of different antivirus engines running there. And you can submit any URL or virtual or file attachment, and it will put it through the 73 different antivirus engines today and tell you how many of them think that it's malicious. And if it's more than two, it's definitely malicious. If it's one or none, it usually isn't malicious. But I also like using the Microsoft Process Explorer utility. It's a free download from sysinternals.com. It's by Microsoft, and I enable VirusTotal in there. It's one of my favorite things to do. Here's an example of me just going to virustotal.com. You can drop off files. You can input a URL, and it will come back and tell you how many of the antivirus engines think that there is an infection there. In this case, it said 4 of the 71. Not every file attachment type or URL link goes to all 73 engines, but it's telling me here 4 of the 71 that did check it, 2 of them came up bad. And so this is a malicious file. And you can actually see that file, the URL link that I submitted was from malshare.com. If you've never been to malshare.com, it's got tens of thousands of malware programs. So this is very normal. I'm wondering why the other 67 engines aren't detecting this as malware, because it really is malware. But hey, I think, it's always good if you want to have a homemade forensics workstation. You can use like Kali Linux. That's our white hat hacker tool of choice. Cubes. Not a lot of people use that, but it's the most secure operating system on the planet. It's a Linux Unix type variant, but it's the most secure operating system on the planet for general public, and it's free. I also like to I use Windows VMs because I'm a Windows guy, and I use the sysinternals tools, Process Explorer, Process Monitor, Sysmon, Autorun, Streams, and TCP View, and App Blocker sometimes, and I'll show you those in just a second. Debuggers are cool to use if you know what you're doing. It's for very advanced users. HTTP proxies to capture web content. I'll show you one in just a minute. Or Wireshark for capturing network packets to and from. I love using Wireshark. I love network analysis, although I don't really go to it in this webinar. But again, if you have Process Explorer, you go to sysinternals.com, download Process Explorer. It's a Microsoft company. It actually, sysinternals got invented by Mark Russinovich, who is now the CTO of Microsoft for Azure. And he's got a lot of really cool tools and utilities that a team of people keep up with now. I think it's a team of people. Could just be Mark. But I like Process Explorer because you can install Process Explorer and it'll show you every Windows or every program that's running in Windows. And every time I start this, there's like 100 programs. You're like, that's why it was being so slow. But the cool part now is you can go to options and tell it to have the VirusTotal option enabled, which is really cool. And then when you do that, it will tell you how many antivirus engines scan something as malicious. I love it. I love it. One caveat, if it's 1 out of something, like 1 out of 73 engines found something malicious, malicious, it's almost always a false positive. I've never seen one out of anything in VirusTotal or Process Explorer ever really be a virus or a malware program. But if you see 2 or above, typically it is something malicious. And usually most of the malicious stuff comes up like 17 of something, 17 of 23, 17 of 22. But anyways, I love that. When I go over friends' houses, like, hey, Roger, my computer's being slow. Do you think I'm infected? I run Process Explorer against VirusTotal. I do it on my own machine at least once a month. I'll click up Process Explorer and see if there's anything malicious on my machine. If my computer or browser is being slow, I run Process Explorer, hook to VirusTotal, and I know in 15 seconds whether or not I've got a malware program or it's something else. And again, you can just drop it off in the browser. You can go to virustotal.com. That's a Google website. Drop it off here. In this case, I actually opened that same file, and it was telling me that some antivirus engine by Acronis was saying that it was a Trojan. It's just a false positive. I waited the next day, went back to the same website, because what happens when you report a file there, a signature, they research it. By the next day, it had been cleared. It was not a virus. So anytime you see 1 out of something, usually not a virus. I've never seen it be a virus. But if it's more than 1, if it's 2 or 3 or 13 or 17 out of something, it almost always is malicious. They also have auto runs. That's a cool sysinternals utility. Again, download it for free on your Windows system. It'll tell you everything that automatically starts on your computer when your computer restarts. And you can look, and you can actually right-click on any of those things you don't recognize and find out and report it to VirusTotal. So that's pretty cool. Process Monitor is another free download from sysinternals. If you want to find out what files and folders and registry keys malware is messing with, you want to get Process Explorer. If you've never used it before, when you turn it on, it will show you hundreds to thousands. If you move your mouse cursor across the screen, you're going to get 2,000 entries in Process Monitor. But so usually you have to really filter things. But once you do that, it will tell you every file read and write and every registry key read and write. If you want to find out what malware is doing on a Windows system, as far as it has to do with files and registry keys, it's a really good tool to use, but very, very, very detailed. Also, the event log from sysinternals Sysmon. So download and run Sysmon. That's really good. It actually creates a new event log in the Windows event log reader, the event viewer. And you can actually, what's great about this one is it will actually show you what's happening through a reboot. So a lot of malware will hide. So when you go to look for it, you can't find it, but Sysmon can find it. So you can reboot the system, take a look through the Sysmon logs, and in this case, hey, I found a malware image. Like it will tell you what the file is and where it's located and that sort of stuff. So it just gives you a little bit of extra forensics detailed analysis. Sysmon, very, very cool for finding information that maybe tries to hide itself on a reboot. Also, like sysinternals TCP view, it will show you what programs are connecting to the network or internet. Like in this case, it's highlighting this file and saying the local address is this file called WinCopy32 or whatever. It ended up, I took this as a screenshot from another company that you can look at in the notes, but it ended up being the Ferret password sealing Trojan, but you can see it's connecting on port 8080 to someplace in Russia. That .ru means Russia. If you're not intentionally meaning to do business with Russia or China or whatever, you probably want to investigate if you have a program. And the program, the file name is rundll32, so it's trying to hide looking like an old thing, except for it's connected to Russia over port 8080. So that's a TCP view. Love running that from sysinternals. Also, every once in a while, I use the sysinternals strings command. Strings will look inside. It's called strings64. If you get a 64-bit system, you can download it for free from sysinternals.com. You can string a file to see if there's anything suspicious in there. And this was actually an old screenshot from the Melissa virus. If anybody remember, I think it was like 1998 or something. I think it was before then. Maybe 1988. No, not that old. But when I was stringing the militia virus file, you can see here it had to infect. Well, that's probably not a legitimate program with the words to infect sitting inside that program. A lot of the programs today are encrypted and you won't find anything useful in there, but it can't hurt. Sometimes things leak out and the hackers forget to hide stuff. If you want to learn more about forensics, I'm a huge forensics fan. It is not it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of really cool stuff to do. I would go to Wikipedia and look up computer forensics or digital forensics, or go to malwareforensics.com. They got a free ebook there. It used to be, I think it was called Computer Forensics for Dummies or something, but now they give away the book for free in PDF form. Those 3 sites, if you're interested in computer forensics, they will certainly help you learn lots of information. But just remember, when you're doing your own forensics analysis, it can take a long time and expertise to do. Well, let's look into investigating some SMS phishing and vishing along the way. Just to learn about this, when you get an SMS message, these are all kind of, or most of these are all of these. All of them except for 1 or 2 are actually phishing messages, and 1 or 2 are legitimate messages. Now, the good thing about SMS, when you get a link, is the link is the link. It isn't like in Windows, or it isn't like in your computer where you have to hover over the link, like where it says Jarvanez site, that is the real URL, or where it says, complaint support at whirlpool.industrySupportDesk.biz. That is where, if you click on that, that's where you're going to go, or at least initially. Although the Google one is a short address. We'll talk more about that in a minute. I like discounttabs.com, or Perdona info. So most of these are phishes. And what you see is what you get, but you still don't know really where they're going to go most of the time. Although, like the Google one, if Google's trying to identify this phone, is that really from Google? It's a short link. It's been shortened, so I don't know for sure. So again, the URLs are shown as is, so you don't have to hover over them. But instead, they're going to try to, many times phishers will use what's called a URL shortener, so you don't know really what's there. So when you're trying to open these again, you can open them using a free online service like virustotal.com, or maybe one of the antivirus vendors. You can open them in a virtual machine. That's what I do. Or you can use a web-based local proxy to view the code of where it would go. Or you can convert any short URLs. You can explode them to be the longer URL. If you want to do web proxy, debugging proxy, probably the most famous one, the most popular one is called Fiddler. So Fiddler literally hooks into your browser, has all the information sent locally to the local IP address, 127.0.0.1, and then port 888, and then you can look at that information. So, for example, here I got sent this phishing email, said it was going to go to it says, Roger, thanks for staying with us. Now, I got this message, I think I just stayed at a Marriott or something like that. So I was like, well, I travel a lot for a living. I got this and I thought, well, is it Marriott? Are they sending me a coupon? What is this for staying with them? Well, I opened up Fiddler. I downloaded and used Fiddler on my VM, and I saw that the Jarvanez website was going to redirect and take me to usamedicstore.com. Hey, where I could buy Viagra. I guess that's what's nice about it. So look at the hotel is trying to tell me. Here you go, buy Viagra or Lasix if I'm having some problem putting out enough water, if I'm not excreting enough liquid out of my body. I love that they have Lasix than Viagra, and it's super active Viagra because the regular Viagra isn't enough, I guess. But that's what's nice about Fiddler. It can tell me where it's going to send me before I get there, as it downloads it if I want to. A lot of the vendors will hide, or a lot of the phishing guys will hide. They were shortening their URLs. There's a lot of legitimate services out there. I forget what the first one was. I think it was Bitly or something like that, or it might have been Tiny URL, something like that. But and then Google got into it, Twitter got into it, and that's because, like in Twitter, because Twitter, you're limited to, what was it, 160 characters initially. Now it's like double that. But so they have this. I'm going to shorten your URL so you can type and use more words or more letters. But there's a lot of URL shortening services. When you click on them, they actually send the user redirected to that site that then converts the ending part of the URL into the longer exploded URL. These are the URL shortening services that are used by malware, at least back in this day. That was back in 2014. I just have in here to show you that malicious stuff uses URL shorteners all the time. It's very, very common that they do that. So you want to expand it. There's a lot of expand shorten URLs. If you want to, one of the better ones for me, in my opinion, is expandurl.net. So I could take this one from Google, I put it in the expandurl.com, and I see, oh, it actually points to the canonical URL. It says is support.google.com. So this message really did come from google.com, from support@google.com. It is a legitimate message. I did it on another one of them. where I had this shortened URL here, and it says, oh, the long URL is malwareshare.com samples. Nope, don't want to go there, right? Not going to a malware site. And if you want to, you can take the URL, put it in VirusTotal, and see whether it detects it as malicious or not. Really strange thing I noticed, and pay attention here. If you put in a shortened URL to VirusTotal, I've seen it be far less accurate. So I would recommend that you lengthen the URL first, and like a virtual machine, get that, then put that into VirusTotal. So in this case, this is one engine detected this. When I put the longer URL in it, I got like a hit of three antivirus engines detected. And it must be that some of the antivirus engines don't know how to redirect from shortened URLs to longer URLs. That must be it for sure. If you get a phone number that claims to be from somebody, you can do a reverse phone lookup. If you type in reverse phone lookup, you're going to get a ton of bogus sites trying to sell you something or put malware on your system, so be careful. One that I like is reversephonelookup.com. So if I get an SMS message tied to the phone number there, tell me it was, Roger, we're prepared and going to ship your order. Please confirm here. I've never heard of this mugabond site, but I want to find out where the phone number comes from. I can put it in the reversephonelookup.com, and it will give me some information here. Here it says that it came out of Washington zone. I don't know where that Washington is, whether it's Washington State or Washington, D.C. It's probably Washington, D.C., I guess, because the MD, I'm guessing, stands for Maryland. But anyways, in this case, I have no idea what this number is for. And by the way, this is where the number was registered or purchased. Like if I purchased a phone, it doesn't tell you where the phone currently is. But again, it gives you some information. So just be careful about all the reverse phone lookup sites. There are some that will claim to tell you where the phone currently is, and I have tried some of those, and it actually works. With that said, most of them are illegal. Most of them are interfaced with like police systems or phone provider systems. You just got to be careful with them, be careful. So most of the time when you get an area code or something, they tell you the general city location, but it's not super accurate. It's telling you where the number was bought, registered, but not where it currently is. But again, you can get those sites that will tell you the current information. I've seen it be accurate, but I would tell most people just, first of all, they're mostly illegal. They usually ask for your credit card, and you just, you kind of want to stay away from them unless you absolutely need to look it up. You can also, if you get those SMS short codes, have you ever had one of those where it isn't a phone number, but it's this little code at the top of the screen that's not a phone number? They're called SMS short codes. You can go to usshortcodedirectory.com, put it in there. Like I got this one claiming to be from SunTrust. I put in the short code of 786411, and lo and behold, the short lookup brought back SunTrust. Hey, it's SunTrust. I got this, I frequently get this. At the end, they have to be selling me Viagra or something like that. But it's funny, my wife gets these too, but they claim to be from all kinds. They're from the same short number, but they have different URLs associated with them. When I looked it up here, it's like, oh, that short number is not registered. Well, tell you what, that is probably not a good sign. We want the short numbers to be registered, not listed. Thank you so much for everything you did today. One thing to remember is that through all of this, security awareness training works, and that if you train your end users about all these things, you could even use this slide deck to train them about what is or isn't phishing, and then do simulated phishing tests at least once a month and do training once a month, that you can significantly reduce the number of your end users that will click on phishing emails. All of our customers, when they follow our advice, which is they do monthly training and monthly simulated phishing, that they get down the number of people that will click on a phishing email from about 33% to about 2 to 5%. And that's not every company. It's not the best companies. It's almost every company that follows our advice. And again, we got a lot of cool resources at knowbefore.com/resources, a lot of cool free security tools. We get about a new one every quarter. We got lots of cool ebooks like the ransomware hostage rescue manual. I just helped update that one. Or my 12 ways to hack two-factor authentication. It's actually got 18 ways. Lots of other cool stuff. We have lots of webinars and papers and videos and education and a blog. Really cool place to go. Also, PhishER is a really cool product we have that if you buy our service, we can actually help you. We'll use the feed-in of your own company and other companies to figure out what is or isn't phishing. And you can use there is a free Phish alert button. The free Phish alert button is a button you can download for Outlook and Gmail. And when you do that, if someone gets a phish, they can open the email, click on the phish alert button, and it will report it to a predefined email address, which could be you or IT. And again, it could feed it into the Phish ER project, which helps create rules and tag. If other people have similar phishes, it will automatically tag them or delete them or forward them or whatever. If you have any other questions after today, feel free to email me at rogerg@knowbefore.com, and I promise to return your email within 24 hours of that, David. I know that we have a few minutes left, and I'd like to take as many questions as we can before we got to quit.
Excellent presentation, Roger. Really mind-blowing, innovative stuff there. Thank you so much. We do have some questions coming in for you from the audience. Let's see, first one, and I'm really interested in the answer to this. When you get a spam message from someone, what's your take on clicking on the unsubscribe link? Is that something you should do or shouldn't do?
I think in general you have to be wary of that. A lot of times clicking on that just confirms you're an active email account, and they then sell your email address to everybody and you get a ton of new spam. But if it's a legitimate company, like I got a lot of magazine subscriptions or news sites or something like that, yeah, it seems to work. If it looks like a legitimate place that would care about you unsubscribing, yes. If it's a regular fishy, spammy type email, no.
Okay, good advice. Next question, they're asking, what are these large cloud providers doing about stopping someone from Russia tipping up an email server in a USA region instead of forcing them to choose a region in Russia or whatever's closest to them in their country?
I think all the big providers are trying their best to fight it. They're not trying to allow it to happen, but it's really difficult because there's a lot of legitimate business coming from those countries, from Russia and China and everywhere else in America, which has, I think, the largest majority of spam sending stuff. So it is tough. They're trying, but every time they put up some type of proactive defense, the bad guys just get around it. So I guess what I mean is you can't trust what they do, and you just have to be skeptical of, anything arriving in your inbox.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Next question. I think you talked about this, but it's great to reinforce it. What's the best way to report suspicious emails that we might receive?
Well, I guess the key is I talked about the phish alert button, but anytime you get a phish, that seems business, or a phish on your business email account or SMS or Vishing or something like that, you want to report it to IT security. You don't want to be quiet about it. You don't want to just delete it and say it's done. I've been in companies where they were under huge phishing attacks, like, this nation state trying to break into this, Fortune 500 company, and nobody was reporting that they were undergoing phishing, thinking that it's just a phish, and they deleted it. And lo and behold, once they finally had a bunch of people compromised and found out, over 998 people got the same phishing email, but because nobody reported it, they didn't know to shut it down. So you want to recognize you've got some type of, maliciousness going on and report it to a centralized location. However you do that, whether it's with the phish alert button or something else, so that the people in charge can figure out what the response is. You don't want to just delete and be quiet about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's smart. Good advice. Thank you. Let's see. Another question here. What's the best or safest method of running the tools you described on a remote host?
A standalone box, right? That's your best, safest. That standalone, not on the network, not on your Wi-Fi, locked down, not using your passwords. With that said, most people do secured VMs and doing the same thing where you create a VLAN in the VM software if it has that feature, and you keep it there and you don't want to, exploding off your VM, get it on your local machine or going across your network. So you just try to make it as isolated as you can on a VM. But if you can, a separate physical machine is best. If you're like me, where it's more of a hobby, you can do it in the VM. Just make sure it's locked down, that you don't accidentally leak it or leak any real information. Like you wouldn't want to, maybe I'm running malware on Windows 10 Sandbox and I'm running malware after malware. I don't want to then open up Hotmail for the first time and put in my password, right? That could be stolen. To open up Hotmail, I have to be on the internet. Well, if I had malware in that system, it could be collecting my Hotmail address and then, sending it to the attacker. So you want to make sure you do things in the right order, make sure it's isolated from your own network and that sort of stuff. And just be cautious anytime you're downloading file, you're clicking on URLs or downloading open file attachments.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Well, it looks like we've reached the top of the hour here, and we've covered all the questions that have come in at this point. Roger, it's been really great having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for listening in for this hour.
For more information, as Roger said, visit knowbefore.com, and Roger has so graciously put up his email address there on the slide. If you want to reach out to him directly, if you have questions about anything you learned today, feel free to contact him. Thank you to Know Before for supporting today's event, and thank you to our audience. Have a great day.